Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel and welcome to another video. That was a very cringy intro. Doesn't matter, I plan to have a little fun video here, so I'm gonna try to do it without too much editing. Always fun and interesting what the results will be. Random topics for this video, like really random stuff. We're starting with Epic Game Store. My first game just launched, or last week, 2 weeks ago, I think last week, my first game launched in the Epic Game Store. All my other games are following. I think it's still important to be on other stores besides Steam. So that's a good topic. So that's going to be the first topic of this video. Without editing, that's what I said, right? Boy. Okay, so Steam is the most important thing for PC games or game developers to sell their games on, because Steam is like 99.9% of the whole world of gamers, and then there's the tiny 0.1%, I guess. Don't do the math on that, I think, yeah. And that covers everything else. So that covers Windows. Let's not forget that Microsoft, somewhere hidden inside Windows, has their own store as well. I never really look on it. I don't really know developers who release on it, but there is a Windows or Microsoft Windows store, apparently. Then of course Epic Game Store, itch.io. Most indie game developers know itch.io for the simple fact that it was built and designed for indie game developers from the start. I was there pretty early. I think it was in the first year, I guess, that it launched. I was there with my games. The problem itch.io has created for itself, I think, is that they allowed a lot of free content and just everything on there. And if you want to sell games on a market that has a lot of free content, you're not selling a lot. So itch.io over the years, revenue on there has like tanked. Even if I now do a big discount on all my games there, probably, maybe, if I'm lucky, 1 or 2 sales, but not a lot. itch.io still the best spot if you're a starting game developer and you want to get your games out there. Don't pursue Steam or anything else that you have to pay to get on there. You're not gonna make a lot of sales. Use itch.io. It's there especially for you as a starting game developer to just create weird stuff, put it on there, see what happens, and have the whole idea of releasing something and how that happens and how you get feedback from players. It's the perfect playground to start in, except not a lot of people do that, and most people hop on Steam and everything else. itch.io is perfect playground for indie game developers to get their feet wet. Then there's of course the Epic Game Store. There are a few others. There's Humble Store. It also changed a lot over the years, but it also changed hands from the original company that started it to also do good and give to charity. It then got bought and purchased by various companies, and I think it's now from the same mother company as ING and a lot of other sites and media sites, and it's a bit messy, but it's still there. It's doing humble bundles. Those are interesting, but not as interesting as it was 10 years ago. And store-wise, not a lot of people buy games on Humble Store, I think. Maybe only in those weird discount moments, the things like that. And then there is GOG, Galaxy of Gamers, I think. They have changed their name, or Good Old Games. I think that's their current name. They have changed their name over the years, and I can't keep up, and it's a very weird short thing, GOG. But a lot of people buy their games there, mostly because they want DRM free versions, and apparently they have something against Steam also. But there's a big enough audience there, and it's interesting to have your games on there as well. But it's very hard to get on there because most of that is curated by GOG, by humans. And there's no algorithm, there's no free for all, there's no pay us $100 and we'll have your game on there. That's not there. You have to, you need context to get on there. I had Residual there the first time because I had a publisher, Apogee. They went back with GOG into the days where GOG started, I think. So connections were there, very easy to get the game on there. And now I have all my games there thanks to Handy Games, who also have a good connections there. Without that, I wouldn't be on GOG with my games. That's sad, but that's the truth. Epic Game Store, however, is available for indie game developers, except the little thing here. You have to pay $100 to get your game on there. You get that $100 back if you make, I don't know, I think $1,000 in sales, and then it will recoup. Same rule as on Steam. There you also have to pay $100 and you recoup that on as soon as you hit the $1,000 threshold, you get that $100 back. Great. The problem for smaller game developers and game developers like me with the smaller audiences, we cannot recoup on both these platforms. It's very difficult because that means if we're selling our indie game for $8 or $9, we have to recoup it on Steam. So we have to, that's the main goal, that's the main target. That's doable. It's still hard for many developers, but it's doable to recoup that $100 on Steam. But now you have to make the same amount of sales on the Epic Game Store. That's almost impossible because, first of all, it's an extremely tiny market that uses the Epic Game Store. I mean, there are still millions of users there. I know, I have seen some stats from people that ran deals on there. I know there's an audience of millions. Like, it's not tiny, but compared to Steam it is. And most people will buy your game on Steam because there they can get the achievements and the leaderboards and have it in their library where all their hundreds of thousands of games sit. And they don't sit on Epic Game Store. So recouping your indie game on Epic Game Store, that $100, is almost impossible. I think for most game developers it's not going to be possible. So then it's not worth it to put your game on there. Dry mouth. At least for me it wasn't. It didn't seem possible to put 17 games on there at $100 each. So that's $1,700 and recoup that on each and every game. Not possible. I now have my games on there again thanks to working with Handy Games. For them it's a lot easier to get on there and recoup stuff if needed. I'm not even sure if they have to recoup or just have the friends to get games on there. I mean, that also happens with Steam. If you are bigger and bigger than big, you have different type of friends on these platforms and you can get things done. The $100 both on Steam and Epic Games is mostly there to get rid of the real trashy stuff, the real cheap stuff. So not every hobbyist or every hobby project gets put on there and clutters the market like it did on itch.io. I mean, it's a very perfect example of why these bigger companies are doing it like that. itch.io leaves everything or allows everything to be put on there. Yeah, and the result is itch.io. And so that's why Steam has this $100 and you can recoup it, but you have to put an effort into it to make enough sales to recoup that. So that's, yeah, and it's at some level it's, I get it. But also $100 for me living in the Netherlands is not the same as $100 for somebody living in Korea, Vietnam, India, wherever, where $100 is a lot more for them. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think this $100 is the same in all countries. So I don't know. It's there. I'm not going to change it. So it's there and I have to start living and I have to live with it. That's it. We all have to live with it. But that's the reason it's there. It's to really give a little bit of a barrier for entry. And the problem for indie game developers is just you cannot cross that barrier on all the platforms. So that's why most indie game developers are just on Steam. But the whole point I started talking about this, from now on, Residual is on the Epic Game Store. All my other games are there. They're being submitted to Epic for testing. I had to implement all the achievements there. That's a requirement. If your game on Steam has achievements, it also needs them on the Epic Game Store. So I had to figure out how to do that. Luckily, there was a library for Java in which I write my games. Somebody else already figured it out for me, so I could use that. Let me dig up their name so I can actually give them a credit in this video. EOS Bear Waves. Is that a company name? That's the GitHub. That's the Git name. Bearwaves, I'll put it on screen. Bearwaves made a library for Java that allows me to get achievements up and running. And once I had it for Residual, and now that it's approved and fully there, it was a lot of copy paste to all my other games, which I have been doing in the recent weeks. And they're all now being submitted to Epic. So they will be rolling out from now on over time. And we'll see if it really makes any money or not. But it's good to have your games in as many places as possible. I keep repeating that as well on this channel. Have your games in as many places as possible. People running into your game wherever is a good thing. So having them there, pretty cool. Brings me to the second interesting and fun point of this video. And I'm gonna change the camera. So there's gonna be a little bit editing. I'm gonna move the camera around and I won't record that. Hang on. Hang on, this is probably not the best angle. I'm looking at my... Hang on, I can do better. Better angle. Second thing of this video is pretty funny. A few weeks, months ago, I talked about Heroes of Loot being available on Amazon Prime. For those that have a Prime subscription, you could get Heroes of Loot for free. I had a bunch of interesting feedback from people that got the game there. A father playing it with his son ran into a couple of issues, fixed that as well, pushed a new version. Always fun to see that people are still digging this game. I talked about this game a few times now on the channel, so I'm not going to do that again, but Heroes of Loot 1 was available on, or is still available on Amazon Prime for free. So go check it out. It looks a little bit dated by now, but people are still enjoying it. I actually have the proof of that sitting in my mailbox and my Discord private messages. So make sure to check it out. And the fun thing here is that, of course, I cannot give away part 1 and then not have part 2 there as well. So from now on, you can also get Heroes of Loot 2 on Amazon Prime Gaming. Prime. I'll put a link right here. From here to, yeah, that's the one. Heroes of Loot 1 and 2 are available. Check them out. Honestly, I like part 2 a lot more. Heroes of Loot 1 did extremely well, and I'm not sure why. Heroes of Loot 2 did pretty good. It made profit, it's still making a profit, but not as good as part 1. But I like it more. As a game developer and designer, there's just more there. And maybe the simplicity of part 1 is missing, and that actually made it so interesting. But still, part 2 has so much more going on with quests and special areas you can get to and interaction with characters. I just like it a lot more. And you control 2 characters instead of 1, which is an interesting thing. You have a melee character and a ranged attack character, and you play with both of them. It's a good game. It's just, it didn't do as well as part 1, but I think it's a better game than part 1. If that makes sense, it makes sense to me. That's the most important thing. If you have questions, don't ask them. And hi, that brings me to the final part of this video. Yeah, monitor, yeah. I got image, yes. I did an interview 2 weeks ago, a little quick interview right here in the office with a local news outlet sort of thing. Online, I think it's just online. NH News, I'll put it in. It's all Dutch. It's not, most viewers will think it's some weird language. It isn't. For me it isn't. For many others it isn't. But you get the point. It was a local, just a local fun little interview. I don't really do these type of things a lot. I also get requests for podcast interviews and things like that. Mostly smaller podcasts and things. I don't like that. I don't like, first of all, I have to schedule it and plan it, and I don't like if things are scheduled and I know it's gonna happen at some point later on in the future, then I'll have to think about it that it's gonna happen. I don't like that situation, so I usually say no. Also, most podcast interview things are from another time zone, and that makes scheduling, I don't like it. I work from, say, 9 to 5, and that's the time I'm here. And I like talking about games and game development, so I had a fun interview with this guy, but normally I say no. I now figured, why not? He came to me because my very old mobile games, like before smartphones, so the Nokia 3300 thingies, those games are now archived online. Weird, but there is a online archive thingy, also regional from the Netherlands. They ran into my YouTube videos and they asked if I maybe wanted to have some games up there. They contacted other game developers as well from the same region, a couple of bigger games from the Netherlands. They are also archived but not available for free because they are still being sold, so that was another option. But I figured I have a bunch of old games that I don't sell anymore for the simple fact that almost nobody has a Nokia 3300 to play this game on. So I'm not sure, my collection is, I think, 20 games, around 20 games. Are archived there, and because of that, and this guy who writes these newspapers and the guy who writes these news articles and stories, he saw that. He figured, well, you're from here, around here, you're local. Can I drop by and do a little interview, which was set up in like a matter of hours. So I like that. Then I don't have to think about it. It just happens. So if you want to do a podcast, knock on my door with a microphone and we'll have a fun podcast. But don't schedule it don't schedule it ahead for me. I don't like that. Anyway, article I guess I'll show it on screen. It's Dutch. It mostly it evolved or ended up being mostly a talk about Heroes of Loot again for some reason. I had a lot of other stuff to talk about and said a lot of other things, but it compressed into a very short article talking about Heroes of Loot and how that game did very well. And it wasn't the first time I was in a lot. Hang on. I think I have proof that I have been in a newspaper, and I'm gonna explain what a newspaper is in a second because I see a lot of young people now shaking their head about newspaper. What is paper and what is newspaper? Hang on. All right, so this is a newspaper for all the young viewers. This is how we all got the news before computers, before internet, before news was only online and you had to pay for every article on its own. This was a newspaper, and somewhere in here, actually at the bottom, again, it's Dutch, but trust me that what I'm saying is in there. This is not a conspiracy. This already starts, and it's a newspaper, it's a headline, clickbait. So this talks about how my game defeated Angry Birds. This is a newspaper from 2013. My game was at the top of the Apple App Store for a week or so, above Angry Birds. It was doing that well at that time. Of course, Angry Birds stood in that top 10 for many years and my game was gone after a week. But at that exact moment, it was doing very well. And this is how a newspaper works. You flip the pages and oh, look at that. Okay. The next image can be shocking. I cannot help it. I was born with this face. This is me about 12 years younger in the newspaper talking about Heroes of Loot with a cat that also recently, sadly, passed away this year. But this is an article about me in a newspaper. Go figure. Yeah, a newspaper is, look it up, ask your parents or grandparents what a newspaper is. It was a big deal. Even in 2013, it was still a fairly big deal. Not so much to me, more to everybody else. Let me explain that. Let me sit for it and explain. Okay, so I work from this office and every week I talk about game development and what I do and the business, and you, as a regular viewer, of course, watching all the 400 episodes, 401 now, you understand what I do. When I talk about games, you know what I mean. A lot of people have no clue. There is a world outside this office and outside of our bubble of people that know there are games, but they have no clue how or what, or they don't think about the fact that people make these games. So when you work from home, just sitting behind a computer all day, and you do something that's not chatting or Facebooking or sending weird pictures to the guy in the back. If you actually do something with a computer that's more technical, people can't really imagine what you're doing. So the hardest thing to explain to people what I do is the fact that they just don't understand. I cannot explain it. I create games, and then they you create, and yeah, there are games, but it's just a shortcut or a short circuit. It's just a connection error. Being in a newspaper made it clear to people who don't understand my job that I actually have a job, that I actually make money, that is actually now and then going very well and now and then maybe less, but I actually have a job and I'm not just sitting behind a computer. I could now show them, look, I'm in the newspaper, you know that this is like where the big stories are. I'm in there. So there is something to my job that's interesting for other people, and it made it more tangible. I think that's the right word. Normally, even my parents or friends and family, they understand what I do, or back in those days when they were still around, they understood what I did, but not at which level or how important it was to other people. Or, I mean, people enjoy my games, and people come up to me and say they enjoyed my games when they were younger, or when they were still at school, or just waiting for a bus. Things, and people just have an experience because of my games, and that's really why I create games, create worlds, so other people can enjoy these worlds that I create, and that happens. But that's very hard to explain to other people. So for them, I was just sitting behind a computer, and for some of the neighbors, my wife Aline was always going out to her job back in those days. She didn't have her own company yet, but she would go out for work, and I would just sit at home behind the computer. So they thought she was making all the money and paying for everything, and I was just a bum, just pretty much not doing a lot. Of course, that changed when we bought the house next door and made it one bigger home. Then that made a connection for them that, okay, he must be doing something behind that computer. And being in the newspaper just made it easier for me to tell people that, hey, I'm actually doing a job. Actually, it's very cool, and I do a lot of things, and read about it. Please check it out. So that's the interesting about being in the news. And again, with this article now, the NH News, I got more response from people that normally don't interact with me or Orangepixel. So friends, family, that's pretty cool. You're in that. That's, whoa, amazing. And for me, it's just like, yeah, there's an article, but if you search or Google my name, there's a lot of articles out there, and a lot of times my name pops up for YouTube videos, games being released, etc. There's a lot out there, but they don't see that world, never. They do see the news. So it was fun to do an article like that every now and then, do an interview, and just have this, I don't know, it's probably just for my ego, to have other people understand that I'm still doing a job. I'm not just sitting here behind my computer, staring at the monitor, or chatting, or whatever. I'm actually working. So that was pretty cool, but I don't just have this newspaper. I also, trying to look up for that newspaper, came into this whole stack of magazines. Do I now have to explain what a magazine is to the younger? Yeah, probably. A magazine is like a gaming website. Even those are getting old, and young people. It's like TikTok, but not animated. You can't swipe it. It's, oh man, it's like, this is a magazine. This was pretty cool. I'm in all these magazines. That's what I want to say. I mean, you could buy these at a store, browse through it. But this is Power Unlimited, Dutch magazine from, I don't even know which year, but it's also a few years old now, because magazines aren't really, there are still a few magazines around, but let me see where I am, because I haven't really checked or looked. I should have done this before I started recording video. This is also how you flip the page. Well, normally you flip the page from left to right, unless you're in certain countries, then you messy video. This is gonna be, yeah, here we go. Gunslugs 2. So this must be from 2015-ish. My game in there. And every one of these magazines has something, one or more games in there. And it's just a lot of Dutch magazines, obviously. But also, we also had a game magazine for the Dutch game industry that hasn't been available anywhere. I think I have all of them still. Was pretty cool. There was just a lot of talk like Guerrilla Games, Killzone, Shadowfall articles and things. Everything from the game industry. The problem is probably, Flambear, Ridiculous Fishing. Problem is of course that the game industry it's big for a small country like us, but it's not big enough to make this sustainable, I guess. So eventually it ended, and I think gameplay, apparently I was in gameplay. I think I was also in retro game. I had a whole stack of retro gamers as well, but I couldn't find my game in there. Let me see if I can find it in this one. I'm usually starting at the end because that's where the tiny mobile games were added, and in those days I was mostly doing Android and iPhone games, so I'm guessing I'm somewhere at the end of this magazine, although I have no idea where. It could be a bigger article. I might cut out a little bit of this. If not, then I'm just now mumbling to the camera while browsing through a magazine and getting distracted by Dragon Ball Z and things like that. I'm now doing a magazine review in this video, I guess. It's a cool magazine. This is 2019. Not even sure which type of game could be in there that's mine. But there are some cool games in there that I should be replaying. I'm probably somewhere in the very tiny areas of this magazine. It doesn't matter. I'm in all of these. And that's just a cool thing that I always wanted. And it started happening from 2012 onwards. Mostly because these magazines finally started noticing mobile games. So they now had all these interesting games to write about that would fill up their final few pages with very short clips of reviews or previews of games. Most of my game releases got into at least the Power Unlimited in the Netherlands. It does help if you know the writers here and there. But also in a few of Retro Gamer, UK magazine and all those things. And it was just very cool being able to go to the store, pick up this magazine, flip through it, see my own game, and then ring it, and then go to the cashier and say, hey, my game. They really didn't care, but I did, and I still do. It's cool to have my game in there. The only thing on my bucket list that hadn't happened is having a physical copy of my game, preferably in a store. But that's going to be very hard because there's not a lot of game stores anymore. That's a shame. Also a shame for most of the game developers from now. There are not that many magazines left, so it's very hard to get your game in a magazine, and yeah, that's a shame. I'm sorry, that's all I can say. It's not my fault, but I'm sorry that you will not be able to experience that of seeing your game or even your face in a newspaper or a magazine. Yeah. That's just not going to happen anymore, and these days you have to make your own content and just put it online, and it can do even better than a magazine did. But a lot of people would pick this up in the store, flip through it and learn about my game, which was cool. And also the end of this video, I think that covers everything. I think that covers everything. So don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below if you have questions about newspapers. What is a newspaper? How does it work? Where can I find one? Things like that. Don't drop it in the comments below. Just ask your parents, your grandparents, or their parents if they are still around. They will know what a newspaper. They might still have it because there are still newspapers around somewhere. Even I don't, but there are still newspapers. People still buy them. If you want to know what magazines are, I don't know. It's like a newspaper, but better. but it's not TikTok, and you really have to go sit for it and browse through it, and yeah, it can really, it weighs. It's actually heavier, sometimes heavier than a phone. So it's all difficult, but it's cool to be in there. All right, if you have nothing to add to the comments below based on all of this, but you are a regular viewer, that's the word, a regular viewer of these videos to help the algorithm. All right, put it in the comments. Newspaper, the keyword for this week's video. Newspaper, if you have nothing else to add, but please add something there. If not, newspaper to push this video into the algorithm. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna browse through these magazines because I have a bunch of them and I need to dig up all my games, and I'm just gonna put some B-roll in this video, probably. See you next week. Bye.